The morning sunlight filtered through the thick, reinforced glass of the research station, casting strange patterns on the polished metal walls. The Earth colony on Proxima 4 was alive with activity, its inhabitants hustling through the narrow corridors to begin another day of survival. It was a day that, like every other, would start with a dose of death. Dr. Amelia Corwin stood in the bustling mess hall, watching as colonists eagerly lined up to receive their morning rations. At the center of it all, a gleaming, cylindrical dispenser hummed with quiet menace. She adjusted her lab coat and glanced at the digital display on her wrist, its readout showing a rapidly fluctuating chart. The chemical compound in question was stabilizing, but only just. A gruff voice interrupted her thoughts. "Morning, document thinking about skipping your turn?" Amelia turned to see Garrett Stone, the colony's rugged security chief, holding his cup. He gestured to the dispenser with a crooked smile. "You're not getting cold feet about the killer juice, are you?" "Hardly," she replied, though the queasiness in her stomach told a different story. Her gaze returned to the dispenser. It looked unassuming, but she knew better. The substance it delivered wasn't just lethal, it was the deadliest known chemical in the universe. And yet, it had become humanity's most essential resource. She sighed and stepped forward, placing her cup under the nozzle. A clear liquid dripped into it, catching the light like a jewel. To anyone unfamiliar, it could have been mistaken for water. But Amelia knew the truth. One wrong step, and this liquid could end her life in an instant. "Bottoms up," she muttered, lifting the cup to her lips. The liquid was cold and metallic, with a faintly bitter aftertaste. Her stomach churned as it went down, but she kept her expression neutral. Around her, the colonists were drinking the same thing, their faces a mix of grim determination and casual acceptance. Amelia set her cup down and exhaled slowly. The colony's survival depended on their ability to consume this chemical, not just daily but consistently. It was an alien compound, discovered when humanity first landed on Proxima 4. The initial settlers had learned its horrifying secret by accident. Its molecules interacted with human biology in a way that accelerated cellular repair and boosted immune response. It was a miraculous discovery, except for one problem. It was so toxic that even a single drop, if mishandled, could kill instantly. The room was filled with murmurs as the colonists discussed the day ahead. Proxima 4's environment was hostile, its surface battered by violent storms and prowled by predatory alien fauna. The compound, which the colonists had dubbed Necrogel, was their only lifeline. It allowed them to endure injuries and illnesses that would otherwise be fatal. Without it, humanity's fragile hold on this planet would crumble. Amelia walked over to her usual table, where Garrett was already seated. He gave her a knowing look. "You're still worried about the mutations, aren't you?" She hesitated. Garrett had a way of cutting straight to the heart of things, and she admired that about him. "The effects are still unpredictable. Every person's body reacts differently. We've seen improvements in endurance and healing, sure, but there's no telling what long-term exposure will do." Garrett shrugged. "Not like we have a choice. Either we adapt or we die. Personally, I'd rather go out swinging." Their conversation was interrupted by a loud crash from the far side of the mess hall. Amelia and Garrett turned to see a young colonist sprawled on the floor, his cup shattered beside him. His face was pale, and he clutched his chest, gasping for air. Amelia rushed over, pulling a diagnostic scanner from her pocket. "What happened?" she demanded, kneeling beside him. The young man, barely out of his teens, managed a weak gasp. I think I got a bad dose." Her heart sank. Necrogel's potency varied from batch to batch, and even the slightest deviation in its composition could be catastrophic. She activated the scanner and frowned at the readout. His vitals were unstable, his body struggling to process the compound. "Get him to the medbay," she barked, gesturing for assistance. Two colonists hurried forward to help, lifting the young man and carrying him out of the hall. Amelia stood, her hands trembling slightly. Around her, the colonists had fallen silent, their earlier chatter replaced with uneasy glances. The incident was a stark reminder of the risks they faced every day. Necrogel might be keeping them alive, but it was also a ticking time bomb. Garrett joined her, his expression grim. This is happening more often, isn't it? She nodded. The colony's supply is degrading faster than expected. We're running out of pure samples, and the synthetic versions aren't stable. If we can't fix this, the consequences are already here. He finished for her. The room's comm system crackled to life, and a robotic voice announced, "Attention! Surface Expedition Team, report to Command Center immediately. Priority alert." Garrett raised an eyebrow. Looks like the day's starting early. Amelia followed him as they made their way to the command center, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go horribly wrong. When they arrived, the room was abuzz with activity. Colonel Vargas, the colony's leader, stood at the center of the chaos, his face set in a deep scowl. "Dr. Corwin, Chief Stone," he said, acknowledging their presence. "We've got a situation. The alien signal is back." Amelia's stomach dropped. The signal had been detected sporadically over the past few weeks, an eerie transmission from an unknown source. Each time it appeared, it was stronger and more focused. "What's different this time?" Garrett asked. Vargas pointed to a monitor displaying a swirling pattern of energy. "It's targeting our necrogel reserves. We don't know how or why, but if we don't stop it, we're done for." Amelia stared at the screen, her mind working furiously. The compound that had saved their lives might also be the reason for their destruction. "We need answers," Vargas said, his voice heavy with urgency. "And we need them fast." Amelia nodded, determination hardening her resolve. Whatever was coming, she would face it head on. Survival wasn't just about endurance. It was about understanding the forces at play and turning them to humanity's advantage. The expedition team stood at the edge of the base's outer perimeter, their figures silhouetted against the harsh, alien landscape. A dense mist clung to the ground, swirling with an iridescent shimmer that betrayed the volatile nature of Proxima 4. Amelia adjusted her visor, her gaze fixed on the map displayed on her wrist device. The alien signal was coming from a nearby canyon, but the terrain was treacherous, and the source of the signal remained unknown. Garrett slung his rifle over his shoulder, scanning the horizon. "Let's hope whatever's out there isn't interested in making us dinner." "Focus!" Amelia snapped, her voice tighter than she intended. The incident in the mess hall and the increasing signal strength had left her on edge. "We don't know what we're walking into. The signal is interfering with our necrogel reserves, which means it's not random. Someone, or something, is targeting us." Garrett smirked, unfazed. "Your Rio ray of sunshine document." The rest of the team, a mix of scientists and security personnel, fell into formation as they moved forward. The mist thickened as they descended into the canyon, muffling their footsteps and distorting their surroundings. The cliffs loomed on either side, jagged and imposing, while strange plants sprouted from cracks in the rock, their bioluminescent glow casting eerie shadows. Amelia kept one eye on her device. The signal was stronger now, the fluctuating waveform erratic but unmistakably intelligent. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and with each pulse, she felt an inexplicable tension in the air. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one of the security officers, his hand resting on his weapon. "Feels like something's watching us." "Keep it together," Garrett said. "We've handled worse." But Amelia knew this wasn't like the usual threats. The connection between the signal and necrogel had implications far beyond their understanding. If the signal could disrupt their supply, it might also hold the key to stabilizing it, or destroying it completely. The team reached a narrow passageway, where the walls seemed to close in around them. A faint glow emanated from the end of the path, and the signal's frequency spiked sharply. Amelia motioned for the group to stop and crouched down, examining the readings on her device. "It's close," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Garrett nodded, his rifle raised. "Stay alert." They moved cautiously through the passage, emerging into a wide cavern that took their breath away. The walls were covered in alien runes, glowing faintly with the same iridescence as the mist outside. In the center of the cavern stood a crystalline structure, its jagged edges pulsating with energy. Amelia's heart raced. The structure was unlike anything they'd encountered before, its surface shimmering as if alive. The signal emanated from its core, the pulses resonating through the cavern like an unspoken language. "What the hell is that?" one of the scientists whispered, his voice tinged with awe and fear. Amelia stepped forward, her curiosity overriding her caution. She reached out with her device, scanning the structure. The readings were chaotic, the energy levels off the charts. "It's a transmitter," she said. "But it's more than that. It's interacting with the environment. It's pulling energy from the necrogyl deposits in the area." Garrett frowned. "So what? It's siphoning our supply?" "Not just siphoning," Amelia replied, her mind racing. "It's rewriting it. Modifying the molecular structure." Before she could elaborate, the crystalline structure flared with light, and a low, resonant hum filled the cavern. The team stumbled back as the ground trembled beneath their feet. The hum grew louder, and Amelia realized it wasn't just sound, it was communication. "Everyone, fall back!" Garrett shouted, but it was too late. The crystal emitted a pulse of energy, and the air shimmered like a heat wave. Amelia felt a surge of heat and cold wash over her simultaneously, and for a moment, the world around her blurred. When her vision cleared, she saw shapes emerging from the walls, translucent, humanoid forms that seemed to be made of the same material as the crystal. "They're not attacking," Amelia said quickly, holding up her hands. The forms hovered in place, their movements fluid and deliberate. Garrett wasn't convinced. "Not yet, anyway." One of the forms moved closer to Amelia, its body radiating a soft light. She resisted the urge to step back, instead focusing on its gestures. It wasn't hostile, it was trying to communicate. "Look," she said, pointing to the glowing runes on the walls. "It's showing us something." The runes shifted and rearranged themselves, forming a complex pattern that Amelia recognized from her research. It was a molecular diagram, necrogyl structure, but altered in a way she'd never seen before. "They're offering us a solution," she whispered. Garrett raised an eyebrow. "You're sure about that?" "No," she admitted. "But they could have killed us already if they wanted to." The translucent figure reached out, its hand passing through the air like a ripple in water. It gestured toward Amelia's device, and she hesitated before holding it out. The figure touched it, and a stream of data flooded the screen. "It's a stabilization algorithm," Amelia said, her voice filled with astonishment. "If we can integrate this, it could fix the necrogyl instability. Or it could kill us all," Garrett muttered. Before they could act, the cavern trembled again, more violently this time. The crystal flared, and the figures began to dissolve back into the walls. Amelia's device beeped urgently, showing a warning. "The energy levels are spiking," she shouted. "We need to get out of here." The team sprinted back through the passage, the cavern collapsing behind them. Amelia clutched her device tightly, the alien data their only hope of survival. As they emerged into the open air, the ground shook one final time, and the canyon was swallowed by a massive cave-in. Garrett caught his breath, his face grim. "Well, that was a hell of a first contact." Amelia nodded, her mind already racing with the possibilities. The alien message was clear: necrogyl wasn't just a tool for survival. It was part of a larger system, one that humanity barely understood. And now, they had to decide whether to trust the solution they'd been given, or risk everything to find another way. The colony's lab buzzed with tension as Amelia pored over the alien data. Screens surrounding her flickered with complex molecular diagrams and algorithms far beyond human science. Every colonist felt the weight of her work, but no one dared interrupt her concentration. She was humanity's best hope of stabilizing the necrogyl, and surviving whatever Proxima 4 had in store. "Time's running out, document." Garrett leaned against the lab's doorway, his voice low but insistent. His usually laid-back demeanor was strained, his sharp eyes scanning the data-filled monitors. "Whatever you're doing, you need to do it faster. The necrogyl reserves are failing, and the colonists are starting to feel the effects." Amelia didn't look up, her fingers flying across the keyboard. You think I don't know that? This isn't as simple as flipping a switch, Garrett. The alien data is... It's rewriting everything we thought we knew about chemistry. If I make even a small mistake, we're all dead, Garrett finished, his tone grim. She stopped typing, exhaling deeply. He wasn't wrong. Over the past 24 hours, Necrogel's instability had worsened. Colonists were collapsing, their bodies unable to process the toxic compound. Without a stabilized version, they couldn't survive the harsh conditions of Proxima 4. I just need more time, Amelia said, her voice barely above a whisper. We might not have it. The colony's alert system blared, cutting through the tension like a knife. Both turned to the nearest screen, which displayed a live feed from the perimeter sensors. Swirling energy patterns lit up the canyon near the collapsed cavern, the same eerie glow they'd seen in the alien transmitter. Not again, Garrett muttered, already reaching for his comm unit. All security teams, report to the command center. We've got movement near the canyon. Amelia followed him to the command center, where Colonel Vargas was already barking orders. The live feed showed figures emerging from the energy, translucent beings, like the ones they had encountered in the cavern, but more numerous this time. They moved with purpose, their glowing forms rippling like liquid light. What are they doing? Vargas demanded, turning to Amelia. She studied the feed, her mind racing. The figures weren't attacking, but their movements were coordinated, deliberate. They appeared to be gathering around the remnants of the crystal structure, which was somehow intact despite the cave-in. They're repairing it, she realized, her voice filled with both awe and dread. The transmitter? They're rebuilding it. Vargas slammed his fist on the console. We can't let that happen. If they finish rebuilding, it could disrupt the entire colony's necrogel supply, or worse, trigger a cascade failure. Garrett crossed his arms. We don't even know if destroying it will solve anything. For all we know, it's the only reason we're still alive. Amelia interrupted before the argument could escalate. We're missing the point. The aliens aren't attacking us, they're trying to communicate. Everything they've done so far has been deliberate, calculated. If we destroy the transmitter, we lose our only chance to understand what they're doing, and why. Vargas hesitated, torn between his military instincts and the scientist's logic. Fine. You've got one chance to make contact. But if this goes south, we'll neutralize the threat. Amelia nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. She knew this was a gamble, but it was the only way forward. The expedition team assembled at the colony's gates, armed and ready. Garrett walked beside Amelia as they descended into the canyon, his rifle at the ready. You sure about this? He asked, his voice softer than usual. No, she admitted. But I have to try. As they approached the crystal structure, the translucent figures turned to face them, their glowing forms pulsing in unison. The energy in the air was almost tangible, like the static charge before a storm. Amelia stepped forward, raising her hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. We mean no harm, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. We need to understand. What are you trying to tell us? One of the figures moved closer, its form shifting as if made of liquid light. It extended a hand-like appendage toward her, and she resisted the urge to step back. The figure touched her chest, and a wave of energy surged through her. She gasped, her vision flooding with images, flashes of alien worlds, intricate molecular structures, and a sense of deep, cosmic purpose. When the vision ended, she stumbled back, catching herself on Garrett's arm. I think I understand. Care to share with the rest of the class? Garrett asked, his tone laced with concern. Amelia turned to the group, her mind racing to piece together the fragments of understanding. The necrogel, it's not just a resource. It's part of a network, a system designed to sustain life on a planetary scale. The transmitter is a node in that system, and the aliens are its caretakers. They're not trying to destroy us, they're trying to help us integrate into the network. Vargas, who had accompanied the team, frowned. And what happens if we don't integrate? Amelia hesitated. The system will collapse. Not just here, but across the entire network. Every planet connected to this system will destabilize, including ours. The crystal flared, and the figures began to dissolve into light, their message delivered. The transmitter pulsed with renewed energy, and Amelia knew they had to act fast. "We need to modify the necrogel," she said, her voice firm. "If we synchronize it with the network, it will stabilize. But we'll have to interface with the transmitter directly to make it work. That thing almost killed us last time," Garrett reminded her. "And it's our only chance now," she countered. The team exchanged uncertain glances, but Garrett finally nodded. "Then let's get it done." As they prepared to approach the transmitter, Amelia's mind was filled with both fear and determination. The stakes had never been higher, and failure was not an option. Humanity's survival, and its place in the universe, depended on what they did next. The transmitter pulsed with a rhythm that resonated deep within the canyon, sending shimmering waves of energy rippling through the air. Amelia stood at its base, her heart pounding as the alien data flashed across her device. The translucent figures had faded into the ether, leaving her team alone with the monumental task ahead. "Once I interface the necrogel with this thing, there's no going back," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of uncertainty raging inside her. Garrett adjusted his rifle, his usual smirk replaced with a solemn determination. "You've got this, document. And if things go sideways, we'll cover you." Colonel Vargas surveyed the glowing structure with narrowed eyes. "We've only got one shot at this. If it overloads or destabilizes further, we'll lose the colony, and ourselves." Amelia nodded, stepping forward. The transmitter loomed above her, its crystalline surface pulsating with energy. She carefully placed her device against the structure, watching as the alien algorithm began syncing with the necrogel's molecular data. Her hands trembled, but her resolve didn't waver. The crystal flared brighter, its light filling the canyon. A low hum reverberated through the ground, growing louder with each passing second. The necrogel in her device began to respond, its unstable composition shifting and realigning. "It's working," she said, her voice tinged with cautious hope. Then, the ground beneath them shook violently. The team stumbled as the transmitter unleashed a pulse of energy that rippled through the air like a shockwave. "Brace yourselves!" Garrett shouted, pulling Amelia back as cracks began to form in the rocky terrain. Amelia's device beeped urgently. The alien algorithm was struggling to stabilize the necrogel structure, the process teetering on the edge of failure. She gritted her teeth, her mind racing. "I need more time!" she shouted over the deafening hum. "You don't have it!" Vargas barked, gesturing to the transmitter, which was beginning to fracture under the strain. Amelia's gaze darted to the glowing runes on the canyon walls. The symbols were shifting, forming patterns she hadn't noticed before. She realized the answer had been staring her in the face all along. The transmitter wasn't just a stabilizer. It was a conduit, designed to amplify and distribute energy across the network. "We need to complete the circuit," she yelled, pointing to the runes. "The transmitter's designed to connect to the environment. It can't stabilize on its own." Garrett didn't hesitate. "Tell us what to do." Amelia quickly directed the team to place portable energy nodes in strategic locations around the canyon. The nodes, powered by the colony's remaining necrogel reserves, would act as temporary extensions of the transmitter, helping to distribute the energy evenly. As the team scrambled to set up the nodes, the translucent figures reappeared, their forms flickering like static. They moved with purpose, guiding the humans to the correct positions. "Looks like they're on our side after all," Garrett muttered, his voice strained as he planted a node into the ground. With the nodes in place, Amelia activated the synchronization sequence. The transmitter flared once more, its energy surging through the network. The runes on the walls glowed brightly, their patterns coalescing into a unified design. The hum reached a crescendo, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then, with a blinding flash, the transmitter stabilized, its pulsating light settling into a steady rhythm. The energy in the air dissipated, replaced by a profound stillness. Amelia checked her device, her breath catching in her throat. The Necrogel's molecular structure had stabilized completely, its chaotic fluctuations replaced by a perfect, balanced state. "We did it," she whispered, hardly believing her own words. The translucent figures bowed slightly before dissolving into the walls, their task complete. Garrett let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. Guess teamwork really does make the dream work." Colonel Vargas, still wary, surveyed the canyon. "Let's hope this dream doesn't turn into a nightmare." Back at the colony, the effects were immediate. The stabilized Necrogel coursed through the systems, reviving power grids and life support functions. The colonists, once on the brink of collapse, regained their strength as the compound's toxicity vanished. Amelia stood in the control room, watching as the colony came back to life. A sense of relief washed over her, though it was tinged with exhaustion. Garrett clapped her on the shoulder. "Not bad for a day's work. Document saved humanity and made some new friends in the process." She managed a tired smile. "This isn't just about survival anymore. The Necrogel isn't just a resource, it's a connection. To this planet, to the network, to something much bigger than ourselves." Vargas folded his arms, his expression thoughtful. "And what happens when the rest of humanity finds out? When they realize what Necrogel really is?" Amelia met his gaze, her resolve firm. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for now, we've proven that we can adapt, that we can survive, even thrive, in the face of the unknown." The team watched as the transmitter's glow illuminated the night sky, a beacon of hope in the alien wilderness. Humanity had not only harnessed the universe's most lethal element, they had embraced its potential, forging a new path forward. For the first time since arriving on Proxima 4, Amelia felt a sense of peace. The challenges ahead would be immense, but they would face them together, armed with the knowledge that even in the deadliest corners of the universe, humanity's ingenuity and resilience could prevail.